So as Peter said, just to give you a flavor of the research that we've been doing at the Centre in the last few months, and also kind of how we approach that research as a methodology that we apply to the research in general at the Centre. Hopefully I can find my slides. So yeah, we're going to talk about exploring generative AI and its role in learning. So generative AI has been a huge topic for the whole day. So just kind of how Learnovate's investigating or exploring that area in general and the work that we're doing. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of how we frame that work, a little bit of the research that the team have been doing, and then just a few observations or kind of reflections on generative AI and where we're at with generative AI as an industry. So as Peter said, we like to look at grand challenges or painful problems in Learnovate when we're looking at technology. It's not just technology for the sake of technology. So in this instance, we've kind of honed in on this area of authentic learning experiences as a concept to hang the hook of generative AI and really look at different problems and challenges that we can apply the technology to. So why authentic learning? So it gives us a few different very interesting challenges to explore. It's based around the looking at learning in real-world contexts and authentic experiences. It involves challenges around personalization, which a lot of the talks and the panel discussion we just listened to were exploring. And it also incorporates areas of reflection. And I hope you can see the last line there behind the chairs, but feedback as well. So metacognition, mentoring, performance support, feedback, all these different challenges. So it's a really interesting area to explore, lots of different problems to investigate. So this is the working group that we formed in the Centre with our members. It's one of the largest groups that we've ever put together, which just speaks to the interest. And one of the interesting things about this working group in particular is that it's a really diverse range of organizations, everything from multinationals with technology providers, people with learning organizations that have learners that are looking to be uplifted and have painful problems trying to engage those learners across a range of different contexts. So there's formal education and also kind of traditional white-collar knowledge workers, and also just looking at young brands, for example, workers in fast food chains and the like. So challenges and problems or exploring generative AI and the impact it can have on learning technology is something that's kind of across the industry, all industries. Everybody's kind of trying to explore this and understand it. It's not just a kind of a niche within a certain sector. So with this working group, we actively engaged with them. Apologies, some strange text going on there. But we workshopped with all of these industry members, trying to understand what they took authentic learning to be and what the problems that they saw as being important to solve. So you can see here a quick visual of all the little post-it notes, the activity that we were doing. But we essentially came up with 10 topics of interest that we thought we could explore within the working group. Everything from authentic experiences, authentic assessment, as we might expect, personalization, skills development, performance supports, motivation and change management, as well as the challenges that we're kind of more familiar with generative AI recently in terms of how can we leverage it to dynamically generate learning experiences or learning content. So in order to put a little bit more shape on that, we kind of framed it as a kind of an end-to-end holistic solution where we're looking at authentic learning experiences that incorporate personalized learning pathways or plans, delivering those learning pathways through content creation and generation, and at scale, looking at challenges around how do we manage all this huge amount of content that we can dynamically or instantly generate with these new technologies, and how to validate that it's still consistent with learning with our learning science and our instructional design. How do we manage the vast banks of content that we might end up with when we look at the ability to tailor content to not just groups or roles, but each individual as a person, and then also challenges around assessment experiences and what it means to create authentic assessments and the impact that generative AI has in the assessment space. So in Learnovate, we take all of our research through a kind of three-stage approach. We initially explore the problem through desk research or thinking phase, before we start to then validate and this thinking phase gives us the opportunity to really kind of quickly understand the context of the domain and the problem, and to share that knowledge with our members in the working group and get kind of very quick feedback, and pivot and change direction, and allow those industry members to apply that knowledge and that understanding and that context to their own work. As we progress with the working group, we go into kind of problem validation, making sure that it's a real-world painful problem. We get out of the building and validate that before ideating, ultimately coming up with a concept or a solution that we might look to evaluate or pilot through the development of software prototypes that we can put into the hands of real learners and evaluate. So this is kind of the standard approach we take, and this is what we're doing within this working group. So then some specifics when we come to the actual different strands of the research, and you can see here in authentic learning in general, I asked a Gen AI tool to create me an image of authentic learning. I don't know about anybody else, but it doesn't look terribly authentic to me. Everybody clustered around a room, not to mention the flower sitting in the corner for some strange reason. But in terms of the work that the team have been doing here, so we're looking at challenges around authentic learning experiences. So we all know that it's a powerful tool when it comes to changing roles within organizations, changing workplace, new knowledge, generative AI as a perfect example, creating new challenges for learners. So authentic learning experiences can foster those other skills as well as the hard skills. The key challenge with it is that it's often complex and costly to develop, so we don't tend to do it as much as we maybe would like to. But when we look at generative AI and the technology and how it can be applied there, we see that there's a lot of powerful ways or useful ways that we can use the technologies in pieces to create authentic experiences. But perhaps the real challenge here is how to integrate all of these different pieces, all the different ways that we can use generative AI to create these experiences. So this is kind of a summation of our kind of exploration of the problem space, and anybody on the working group will have poured through the great resources that the team have put out there. So anybody who is interested in this research can join the working group and have access to those in the future. As we look at some of the other strands, so personalized learning paths or learning plans, an area of research that's particularly close to my heart. We know that personalization isn't a new concept when it comes to learning technology or AI in particular. It's always been a common area of application. We've got a lot of uses of recommender systems. We've used rule bases, AI planning, and knowledge space theory as a concept within the learning or to create personalized learning experiences. But we're really starting to look at how generative AI can maybe augment or enhance these capabilities now that we have perhaps the ability to scale beyond the learning strategies that maybe we initially bake into a system. We can dynamically generate or expand those based on individual needs, so the pathways can change. But obviously, paired with that, we have challenges around ownership of the learner experience. If we're handing over too much responsibility to guiding learners through the experience to an AI, and we also have challenges around explainability. So if we're getting an AI tool to create these pathways for individuals at a micro level, at a level of granularity that maybe we weren't able to do before, what does that mean in terms of explainability and kind of informing the learner about how this is happening and why it's the best choice for them, and giving them the tools to make choices as well as being guided or treating it like a black box. And again, my little graphic, which was generated by AI, this time looks a little bit more sensible. The prompt here was learning paths between different concepts for professionals. So you can kind of see we've got some paths that it all kind of makes sense. Learning content creation is kind of a key element, and it kind of builds on the learning pathways. If we can create these kind of micro-personalized experience pathways for each individual learner, taking into account their specific needs and not just generalizations, this opens up the challenge around being able to create vast or very hyper personalized experiences, taking into account the particular interests and needs of an individual learner and not just a group. And we've seen that there has been an initial exploration of some of these concepts, some of the first generation of the tools looking at this from a learning perspective and not just a pure content creation perspective. Maybe lacked an awareness of learning theory or learning science, instructional design, but we are starting to see some tools come out into the market that are starting to weave those concepts or those scaffolds or structures on top of the generative AI capabilities. But we're still faced with challenges around kind of accuracy and the term hallucinations that we're familiar with in terms of the eagerness of the AI tools to give us responses and answers and not necessarily just kind of stick to the facts. And then we also have some concerns when we come to very bespoke content, very industry-specific content in terms of privacy and confidentiality. But these are things we're exploring. And again, a nice graphic which I think illustrates content creation quite well as long as we don't look too carefully at it. One of the other areas that we've looked at is the implications for assessment, and we know, building on the content creation area, that we can leverage generative AI to create question banks for us, and hopefully that will be a very useful and powerful tool when it comes to assessment in a general level. But there's also the wider challenges around what does generative AI mean for assessment when it comes to kind of more formal assessments, especially in higher and further education, and trickling down into the school space. And I'll get rid of that quite disturbing graphic, which is kind of giving me the creeps anyway, and slightly more boring. But so we've looked at some of the research coming out, or the best practice coming out of universities who are already starting to explore how do they set up frameworks that allow their academics to consider the impact of generative AI when they're designing their own assessment methodologies. And we're seeing a lot of different trends in terms of some organizations who are trying to lay the foundations for generative AI and its use case, and identifying where it's appropriate and where it's not appropriate. And these are interesting little structures that are being put in place, and also considering how generative AI and the student can work together. So what does assessment look like if we see generative AI as a tool that we know students are going to be using, even if we set rules that say no, you can't. We all know very well that they'll find ways around it and they'll use it. So let's embrace those things. So these are kind of structures or scaffolding that a lot of higher education organizations around the world are putting in place, and we're seeing them again trickle down into other contexts. A lot of the schools and further education we see are looking towards the university sector for guidance, because they're the kind of early adopters or the ones that are feeling that pain most initially. And we know that a lot of these trends and approaches will follow out into formal or into corporate education as well. Finally, then, in terms of the last strand of the research that we're working on, so this is the kind of in progress, looking at the coaching and performance support, or the agent AI type experiences, and again, quite a nice visual there. But this is the active work that's going on in the center, and all of this will come together. This is very much informing the direction that we'll take in terms of the authentic learning experiences, bringing together all these different elements. So that's, I know, a very rapid and whirlwind exploration of some of the concepts. Hopefully something there maybe has taken an interest, and please follow up with the research team in Learnovate if you're interested in any of those topics or want to explore it further with us. But just in terms of some kind of wrapping up of it all. So one of the challenges, and we've talked about it throughout the day, I think, is keeping up with generative AI. We've got tools coming out on a continuous basis. As soon as we think that we've got a grip on what a tool like ChatGPT can do for us, early, I think, April or so this year, we had GPT 4.0 come out. Already last month, we started to talk about what GPT 5 or GPT O1 would look like and the capabilities. So we're constantly chasing this, and we're trying to understand the potential and the impact, but the tools keep moving ahead, and the capabilities, and it's a challenge in of itself. So just bringing back up some of those graphics that we had throughout all generated through Gen AI tools based on the theories the concepts that we were looking at. But if we notice, apologies, that should have animated nicely, but we didn't get it. There's some strange stuff going on here. It's not always amazingly perfect. We've got some what looks like text or English language, but if you look at it too carefully, it doesn't make any sense. So that's not great for us if we want to generate something. We've got the invention of a new transparent monitor technology. This poor guy doesn't have a face. He seems to be a brain on the top of a head. But this is where we were maybe 12 to 8 months ago in terms of the technology. But then things evolved. We had these multimodal models come out, the GPT-4o type technologies, where all of a sudden now it's able to blend text and images in a much clearer way. The resolution isn't great here, but if you were looking at this in your own machine, you would notice that the text on the typewriter is actually what the user asked it for. So give me a typewriter and it should say the following thing. And it's able to incorporate exactly as it should be. Another example of some of this multimodal technologies, and this is an example I think a lot of people give, is the GPT-4o video that you can find on YouTube around Sal Khan giving a maths tutorial to his son, and being able to speak to the AI bot, and it's going back and forth and having a dialogue around how to solve this maths problem. So as learning technologists or educators, trying to keep up with these technologies can be pretty challenging. Another example that just coming out of some of the things that some of the research team in Learnovate were looking at, this is a visual of the Universal Design for Learning framework. And one of our team was exploring how this would impact on students in the university and how we could support them, and asked for a few different ways to visualize this in a more engaging way. So they came up with several different options, but this was the one they gravitated towards. So illustrate the UDL principles with characters or personas representing different types of learners. And this is what the generative AI was able to come up with. And again, this is starting to get pretty advanced. But when we try to think about what we can do with these technologies, how we can integrate them into our products and services, or the future solutions, trying to keep up with these things is increasingly challenging, but probably a good challenge to have given the strength of the capabilities. So just to wrap up, and I know I'm very conscious that there's a reception following this, so I'm sure you're all eager to get there and continue on the conversation. So I thought just to wrap up, I'd ask the question, so where are we with generative AI? And use the lens of the Gartner hype cycle maybe to kind of think about where we are. And I know we've had a few different kind of ways of looking at this throughout the day, in terms of how much are we using them on an individual basis, have we started to explore them. But this, I think, kind of marries the idea that generative AI had really exploded onto the scene. The level of adoption in such a short space of time has been kind of interesting to see, and how that has spurred on the impact. So I'm interested to see kind of where everybody thinks we're at, just not necessarily at an individual level, but just as a community, perhaps. And we'll see how that goes. So there's a question on Slido if you're still on that.